Hello, my loves. Today we're going to look at some more Reddit stories, and if you've enjoyed a Reddit story, why don't you consider hitting the subscribe button? Maybe that's the notification bell too, and let's start with today's story. AITA for not wanting to move in with my girlfriend yet. 31 years old, finally finished school recently and started on my career. My work schedule is both extremely flexible and inflexible because it's largely determined by the needs of the children and families I'm assigned to. I met 31 years old my girlfriend almost a year ago to the day online. After a couple of dates, we decided to just be friends. This was before I finished school, and with all the stress I was under with that, family, and some medical issues, I was in a really bad place and was not a good person, let alone a friend. She stuck by me though and recognized my struggling, knowing that's not who I really was. The fall into the winter was extremely rocky for us, but we became best friends in truth after her dog passed unexpectedly. She had been extremely depressed, and her house was in bad shape. She finally let me get close enough to help, and I helped her get things kickstarted, which cemented our friendship even more. At this point, I had started developing strong feelings for her again, but she had previously said she wasn't ready, and it was hard, but I understood, especially after how rocky things had been and that it had largely been my fault. We kept getting closer though, and finally in March, after hanging out more, she admitted she was starting to develop feelings for me. We didn't put a label on things because neither of us was ready, and we didn't want to jinx things. She also has some pretty severe relationship trauma among other trauma that made labeling things particularly scary. Then around the first half of April, we talked about it again and decided we both wanted to be poly. At this point, we began referring to ourselves as each other's partners. The poly dating separately was going well, and our relationship was strong. She mentioned she might be open to the idea of being nesting partners. We decided non-hierarchical originally, and we both agreed it would be something we'd be open to sometime in the future. Things continued to progress. She had a big dip in her mental health but was finally back on medications after not being able to afford them. She even said I could think of her as my girlfriend and talk about her as such. This was a really big deal for her, and it meant the world to me. Now, this whole time I'd been casually looking for apartments relatively near my office. She lives an hour away from where I do currently, but she has car issues and staggering debt. A big chunk is private student loans. I enjoyed the drive, so I would just come out to her all the time, multiple times a week before I was working, and nearly every weekend once I was. I'm not holding this against her, I stand by it, and I would do it again. I have zero regrets about the driving. I'm only mentioning it to establish how frequently because that will become important momentarily. Now I have to drive a lot for work. I'm talking 1,000 miles or more per month in my personal vehicle, and that's just work. My office is due south of me, so it's just as far from her as I am. Also, because of the way I need to be able to be flexible with my scheduling, there are days I may need to go in the morning for an hour or two, then I'm off work until I have a meeting later in the afternoon or evening. That means I'd have to drive over an hour to get home if I was living with her and an hour back for the meeting. Alternatively, I'd have to schedule personal stuff in town during that interim. That's fine, and I'm happy to figure it out. The problem is I'm still in training, and I'm not going to know how that scheduling is going to work for me until I've been carrying my own cases for a while, which is going to take no less than 8 months. The other issue is we get reimbursed for our work mileage minus commute, but it's based on whether the destination is closer to the office or your home. I've decided this is really a non-issue for me as the commute isn't that much different, and it's a bad idea to think of the mileage reimbursement as anything more than paying for gas and maintaining my vehicle. Finally, the rental market here sucks something awful. I was only able to find one decent apartment complex and one great one that wasn't income restricted and was taking waitlists. The waitlists are a minimum of 6 months long, and the one for the great complex has an additional $300 fee that rolls into your deposit when you agree to move into the style of unit you wanted when it becomes available. If you opt out, you lose that $300 priority waitlist. So I need to decide pretty much about now if I want to try and get into this place, which I did, and I was maybe 2 miles from my office. A couple of weeks ago, she seemingly jokingly mentioned moving in. Don't remember the phrasing, but it was the timing and the tone. Then she brought it up again as a way for me to save money, and I agree it would help me save a lot, and I do in fact want to live with her. She still has some major issues with depression though, and she still can't maintain her house by herself. Dishes stay in the sink for over a week if I don't do them. There are half-filled drinks in plastic cups all over her room. Laundry everywhere and never gets done, and she doesn't shower every day, but her personal hygiene is otherwise good. The bathroom is nasty, although she did finally start cleaning the sink yesterday. I don't mind helping her clean. In fact, for months I begged her to let me help more, and she refused, only finally recently beginning to relent. I know doing everything for her won't help her, but I was hoping once it didn't seem as overwhelming, she wouldn't feel as crushed by how monumental a task it seemed. And really, despite how I've described it, it could be cleaned in the solid day of cleaning to sparkling cleanliness. I'm happy to help her with this. I don't mind taking a majority share of keeping the house clean. I can't help but think long-term though, and if I'm away on business for a few days, or if I'm so slammed at work I'm not able to do as much, that there's going to be half-eaten food and dirty dishes everywhere. None of this bothers me right now. I'm even staying whole weekends with her. She is in therapy, and it seems to help, I think. Before I continue that though, I need to jump back. Sorry, I'm on mobile, and formatting is a giant pain. I still live with my parents. I've never had my own place and largely don't have control of my living space. My room, which is the only private space I have, is regularly violated even after trying to explain how badly damaging to my mental health it is. I have wanted to live on my own for so long but haven't been able to afford it until now. To have control over my own space, organize things in a way that works best for me, and not having to worry about what someone else thinks. I have not had this freedom, and it is something I feel very strongly about. That being said, combined with the other wall of text above, I didn't think we were ready to move in together. I think it's too early in our relationship, and we're having disagreements related to communication. We had previously had an argument where she told me I didn't support her, and I didn't try hard enough to support her. I handled this calmly. I asked questions to try and understand why she felt this way. I listed the ways I thought I was supporting her and asked how to improve. She couldn't tell me, she had no answer for me. We eventually moved on, and things were good again. Then, when I tried to talk to her about all this after discussing it with my therapist, who said I can't control how she reacts, she absolutely lost it on me. Raging, crying, yelling, telling me I don't do enough and telling me she can't get over me not wanting to move in, and that I'm a giant asshole. Granted, I butchered the delivery, and frankly, she was right to be a little upset with me. However, I handled that calmly, if extremely upset and crying too, as I gathered my things from around her house. Finally, I asked if she really wanted to end things this way while we're both sobbing, and she said no. I stayed a while, sitting in bed with her until she calmed down and fell asleep, then I left. I largely gave her space because she told me the thought of me sickened her and made her angry. I knew she was upset, and I was a bit upset, but I didn't let it get to me. I know she cared about me. A couple more weeks go by, and we seem to be back on track now, and things were going well the past few days. Then today, she had therapy, and while we were lying in bed just a little while ago, she told me therapy went well, and oh, my therapist thought you wanting to live alone was silly too. I responded good-humoredly, saying I thought it was unprofessional her therapist offered an opinion on that at all. She flipped over and now won't talk to me. I tried explaining how hurtful it was to have my feelings invalidated like that, and she claims to understand and even articulated it. She still won't talk to me though, and she said she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, she's tired of it, and tired of fighting about it. To me, this says she really doesn't care, and I'm more like her emotional support animal than her partner. I have not said this, and this is honestly how I feel. I'm still here, and I haven't left yet because I do love her and I do want things to work out. We otherwise are perfect for each other, which is why this sucks extra hard. Yes, I know we both have a lot to work on individually and probably aren't ready to move in together. I agree. Some of you may even think we have no business dating right now. On that, I disagree. I left out a lot of context because it's too identifying with what I've already said. We both have degrees in psychology and are usually really good at being understanding and trying to stay objective. Story: understanding our differences. Hello, I am a 27 years old partnered with a 30 years old. Both of us have experienced a lot of traumatizing events in our lives within childhood and partnerships as adults. We've been trying to figure out our togetherness for about a year and a half now, which holds a lot of love and compassion, but it feels like mostly we're arguing about why it's not working and building resentment. We get into disagreements about things that we both take way out of proportion. I am getting to a point where I feel like I'm always doing or saying something wrong in some manner. I feel like my sense of self-esteem has plummeted so far that what I think/remember is doubted by my own self. I've had a brain injury in my teens that has affected my memory capacity, and I've opened up to my partner about this. I'm self-conscious about it, but even when I'm sure of something, I'm not for long because she remembers something completely different. I feel like the things I do, say, are capitalized on as if she plays no part to me getting there, and either I am convinced that I'm doing something wrong or that she's trying to manipulate me. I don't know what to believe anymore and end up folding to what she claims of me. She studied psychology, so I feel convinced sometimes, but I've been called every name in the book and it's breaking me down to a point where I don't even know what's true about myself anymore. I'm okay with questioning what I think I know and seeing from different perspectives, but I feel like I'm going nuts here, like I actually don't know what's real anymore. X. We were trying to put a beat-up bed frame together. I reacted and got frustrated, which I'm expressive when I'm irritated with something, and I know it isn't exactly enjoyable to be around, but it's hard for me to retain my blurts. God damn it, this is fucking ridiculous, but it's never directed at her. She rudely says go take a minute and that I'm triggering her with my reactivity, that I've been explosive all morning when I hit my elbow and then my knee a bit later. I seeked comfort from her after I groaned in pain and rolled on the floor from the knee hit, not explosive in my opinion, and said that it all started because I had to purchase something that I was annoyed with having to purchase. We had a conversation about it. She didn't think I really needed to buy it. I say it's stupid and I already did. I need to ask someone who knows the laws to find out more, and we moved on. Circling back, I am trying to disassemble the bed frame that didn't work properly. She's by the side of it and I realized I was moving too abruptly and I stopped so she could move. Right after I stopped, she snaps at me with, "Stop so I can get by." She got upset because she was nervous I was going to hit her ankle and said I don't care about her feelings by not apologizing for making her nervous. We take time apart and then come back to talk, which again leads to argument. She says I invalidated her feelings because I didn't take ownership for how I made her feel even if it didn't happen. I respond with, "How does it imply I do not care with my actions?" by stopping before she had said anything, which I'm genuinely asking her. She looks at me like I'm crazy because that's not how it happened, and now I'm trying to distort her reality and blame shift. Then she's screaming at the top of her lungs from 2 away, so loud it hurts my ears, which is very triggering. I get mental overload when I'm being screamed at. I finally reach my limit of her screaming in my face, and I stand up feeling like I'm about to explode and yell back, "Stop yelling, I can't fucking handle the yelling," with my hands on my head. Then she says, "What, you're going to hit me now?" and gets up to walk away. To which I say, "What the fuck? No, I'm not going to hit you, that didn't even cross my mind." She goes in her room and slams the door to come out a few minutes later saying, "Can we try talking again?" Often when I try to speak for my side, she talks over me or starts screaming that I'm making her crazy, to which I'm not heard or actually considered for what I'm saying and feeling. Even when I'm calm, it's like it makes her react more. Sometimes I tell her multiple times how something has made me feel, and it finally clicks after me bringing something up over and over and saying it in just the right way that she understands. Story: for wanting partner to work harder. So we've been together for almost 10 years, Our living situation has potential to become something better. However, my significant other blames me for being on government assistance even though I need the help to go to therapy for my mental illness and have medication to function every day as well as survive in this economy. I've always contributed to the bills. We are a 50 on 50 type of relationship. We try to do things equal. That terms is used loosely cause I am self-aware of my current lifestyle. So most of the time, I stay with less of the amount that I get on a monthly basis. It's been hard to survive on only a certain amount every single month, but with the help of my husband's job, he works in retail, we are able to make ends meet. However, this retail job doesn't give him the hours that he needs. He has the hourly wage, but not the hours. So although we have the potential to have a better living situation, we can't fully if he doesn't want to get a second job or even get a job that gives him better hours. He throws it in my face that I should get a job so we have a better life, and although I agree, it isn't easy for me to let go of my government assistance. There are so many reasons as to why I can't get off of assistance that I can't fully disclose without the fear of getting in legal trouble. I am afraid that this will further put a strain on our relationship, and it is depressing to deal with. I love him so much, but to me it seems like he is not willing to change because he is comfortable with his current job. And he feels the same way about me, how I am not willing to make the same sacrifices either. Even though I fear of getting into legal trouble, I am choosing to speak up on a burner account because I don't know what to do. Even though I live off on my assistance, I've found ways to earn extra income on the side without getting in trouble yet. For this, my partner calls me a smart and capable woman. I stay on my assistance because I do need the therapy and the medication, but I also need to stay on it because of my mother who is terminally ill. She also receives assistance too, and I am under her care. So for almost 10 years, I've been living my life for everyone else but me. I don't want anyone to feel bad for me because I know what I need to do to get out, but I am afraid to not be able to withhold a job and not be able to contribute to bills at that point. I am afraid to make my mom struggle too, or possibly lose her benefits too because of my doing. Without my contribution, not only would my mother suffer, but so will my partner. Story: my partner doesn't seem to care about what bothers me. My partner and I have been together for 2 years. We have lived together for 1.5 years. From the beginning I knew he had OCD surrounding germs/contamination. This didn't bother me because I am a clean person. However, this has still been a battle for me. I've had to change everything in my routine to accommodate for this extra cleaning/hand washing. Those who have a partner with OCD will understand. I've told him from the beginning that I am an organized person. I don't like clutter or things on counters/floors. This doesn't mean I won't leave dishes sometimes or close out the hamper. I'm not a perfect person, no one is. I just try my best to stay on top of it all and not leave mess everywhere, since it causes me immense anxiety. My problem is, he seems to not care about trash or clutter in our room or anywhere. He leaves bottle tops everywhere and Q-tips all over the floor. Same with his clothes and dishes. The other day he spilled powder in the bathroom and did not clean it up for days. You get the gist? Every time I bring up how this bothers me, he says he will take care of it. Sometimes he does, but most of the time he doesn't. I either have to ask again or do it myself. Now, like I said, I'm not perfect, sometimes he cleans up after me too. But I don't feel like I leave things like that all over the floor, or at least to that extent. Lately I've thought that maybe if I stay extra on top of it, then he will too. This is not the case. I continue to come home to clothes and used Q-tips all over the floor. To give him credit, he did clean up the powder in the bathroom, but he used my favorite band t-shirt to do it. This sparked a fight, because I like my clothing to last and I felt like he disregarded my things. It's not the first time either. I've asked him to not use my clothes for those things. We own towels. I promise. I've tried talking to him about how this makes me feel. Like he couldn't care less about what bothers me, yet he's always on my case about washing my hands. Not that I don't wash them, he just has anxiety about it and he can't help but ask me to wash them sometimes. It's OCD. I do understand. But it's beginning to make me feel like his cleanliness is more important than anything else in the world, including how he makes me feel. I don't want to leave him, I love him and see myself marrying this man. He does everything else so right, and will do things to make me feel loved all the time. It's just this one topic that he struggles with. Story, AITA for being with someone I wasn't sure about. We both are international students and we met when I moved in the other room of the place he was living in. We have so many interests in common and he is a golden soul. I love spending time with him and so does he. I genuinely care about him and I tried to vocalize whatever is going on in my head multiple times and even tried going no contact, impossible because we live under the same roof. I am going to absolutely honest here and say that currently I am not ready to be committed and have a relationship or even date. Whenever I tried doing the above for his sake it backfired by me getting overwhelmed and burnt out. I have been unfaithful and so has he. Before I started dating him I gave him a full disclaimer that I am not ready for a relationship or even dating, but I think he didn't pay heed to that. Every time I would break up I would go to this other FWB for a hookup and it would hurt my housemate a lot. Once we were dating and I made out with a guy in my university, but guilt overwhelmed the living shit out of me, so I came home and was honest about the whole making out ordeal and all the problems I had in my mind with our situation. Now his unfaithfulness, he went for a vacation for a month, and right before leaving he confessed that he loves me. I was a bit mad at this as the time and place he confessed fueled the living shit of my separation anxiety and peace in general. I was mad at him for 3 or 4 days and then things kinda settled. We would talk regularly on call and nothing seemed off. He told me about 2 weeks of coming back from his vacation that he had hooked up multiple times when he was away. Even though I had also cheated, I told him not to expect absolute loyalty as currently I am not that person, even though I want to be a loyal person forward in my life, but I also told him that he will get unparalleled honesty from my side irrespective of whatever happens. Now the thing which bugs me is that he hit it with such precision and acted like everything was normal. We both have taken care of each other when the other wasn't in a good space. Every time I talk about him cheating he brings up my past hookups, logically fair enough, and that shuts me up in the moment, but still my mind isn't at peace with it. He then told me why he cheated. His actual words were, "It got me free dental treatment." I was just shook. After processing this statement of his, I asked him, "So you basically somewhat prostituted yourself after you told me you love me?" He took offense at the prostitution statement and totally flipped it on me. I apologized and didn't talk about it again. Him being so caring and loving all the time and still ending up doing this really caught me off guard and hurt me real bad. He gets really messed up whenever I form healthy distance for my sake, as he has formed a sense of being codependent on me emotionally and physically. He comes home and I sometimes make him something to eat and I like taking care of him at times, but when I need to clear my head and have some space and time for myself, he absolutely loses it, keeps taking the blame on himself, and I have to go back to that nurturing role to regulate him. I really want to get out of this situation, but I cannot move out as I have landed a job very close to where I live. Story, AITA for taking my mental struggles out on my boyfriend. I am 20 years old, have been with 20 years old my boyfriend for roughly 6 months. Our relationship has been great for the most part. He is an amazing partner to me. We've had our fair share of arguments and disagreements, but we tend to resolve them one way or another. I also struggle with some mental health issues, which can sometimes take a toll on our relationship. My boyfriend reassures me that I can come to him with my struggles, but I tend to find that he struggles to grasp the intensity of my emotions and how real my emotions feel for me. I have not seen a professional about these issues, and they have persisted throughout my childhood and into adulthood, so I've been handling them all on my own. I was grateful to find a support group that helped me get through these struggles, but I lost that shortly after my boyfriend entered my life due to unrelated drama. As a result, I find myself confiding in him a lot for emotional support. I don't have a great relationship with my family, so he's kind of the only person I have right now. Anyways, since we started dating, we have been calling or talking to each other every day or every other day. We make time for it by calling in our free time or staying up a little later at night. We usually hang out once a week, as our busy schedules don't allow us to meet more than that. However, over the past week, I had made multiple attempts every day to see if he is free to call, but he was always busy, typically playing Call of Duty with his friends. A few different nights, I tried to force myself to sleep early because he was busy staying up with his friends. I didn't want to be needy and deprive him of his time with his friends, but it really started taking a toll on me mentally when I was making constant efforts to reach out, and he was busy. He would say things like, "I'm so sorry, I feel bad," to which I reassured him that everything was okay. This is where I think I am to blame. I should have just told him that I would really like it if he could take time out of his day at some point to talk to me, since I feel quite alone. One night, we did end up calling after multiple days of only talking somewhat over text, and I was not in a good state mentally. I felt very alone because I had no friends to turn to, and I expressed this to him. I opened up about some of my recent struggles and feelings unrelated to him, and his only solution so far has been to get stronger mentally. That statement has been said to me a lot by him in an attempt to help me, but it often feels invalidating to how overwhelming my struggles can be. I could tell that seeing me like this upset him, so he told me he needed time alone, and that's how our call ended. I started sobbing after the phone call because I felt like I was pushing him away from myself. The one time I was able to call him, he wanted to be left alone. Now, I'm confused about whether I messed up by placing certain expectations on him, that he will be able to support me through my struggles and would communicate with me on a daily basis. I'm having a hard time navigating this, as I know that my perspective is strongly driven by my emotions, and I don't want to burden my boyfriend in a way that inhibits him from living his life. Story: AITA for saying being a stay-at-home wife is a job. I, 25-year-old, was talking to my boyfriend, 26-year-old, about how I've been feeling drained lately because I feel like I do everything around the house. I work a full-time job Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and often work overtime. I also have a very small business on the side which brings in some extra money every now and then. I live with my boyfriend and he works a full-time job overnight, also with overtime. He expects me to cook, clean, grocery shop, and do everything in between on top of working full-time. When I explained that it's draining, he says he gets it and he helps out sometimes. Most of the time though, it's still all up to me to figure out how I feel and get everything done. Lately I've gotten past the point of being drained and moved into full-blown exhaustion. I agreed that I could take full-time care of the house and other tasks if I didn't need to work, but because I do, I expect more help around the house and he feels like it's not his job as the man. I can admit that I have let the condition of the house spiral a bit because of my exhaustion and feeling unsupported. He feels like as a woman, I should want to take care of everything. He thinks exhaustion is understandable for like a week but not long-term. He thinks because my job is hybrid, that I have time when I'm working from home to do odd tasks around the house, and he won't admit to downplaying my job and saying it's easy just because it can be done at home. I feel like he doesn't want to understand how I feel because he wants to be right. I feel like as partners he should want to help more. I pay bills just like he does. I go out and work full-time just like he does. He should be able to cook and clean and grocery shop like me. He suggested me just cleaning up after myself to make it fair, but he doesn't realize how much of a mess he makes on his own. I'm uncertain of what else to say. In our last discussion, he advised me to speak with a married woman to understand if being a stay-at-home wife can be considered employment, as he could not explain it as a man. Married women, what are your thoughts? Am I wrong in believing that being a stay-at-home wife is a job? Am I the asshole? Is it fair for me to work full-time and handle the majority, if not all, of the chores with little to no assistance? Story: AITA for dumping my BFF of 30 years over her secrets. My friend, I will call her Lucy, 47 years old, has been a part of my family for the last 30 years. We were practically sisters since she stayed at my house so often. My mother had a fall accident early last year and needed in-home care. Since Lucy was working for a company that cleans and does errands for the elderly, she offered to help. It was a perfect opportunity to have someone involved that I trust since I live 3 hours away. 4 months went by and things were going well, but Mom had another minor fall. Lucy called me about a week after that to tell me she couldn't work at my mom's anymore, and asked me if I thought my brother would have had anything to do with my mom falling. I of course wanted to know what would make her think that, and she had no reason. After that part of our talk, she also had some juicy gossip, which included a bit about my brother being caught by his wife looking at some pictures of and talking to another woman. This was accompanied by the usual "don't tell him I told you about it," as any of her gossip does. My mom and brother live next to each other at this point. I never gave it a second thought after our conversation other than why did I need to know about that? Flash forward and now 9 months have gone by since this with no other mention of it. I'm now planning my trip to visit. Texting with Lucy about when/where we are going to meet and making plans for at least 2 weeks together. We usually meet at my mom's, but this time she can't make it there and doesn't want me to come to her house either. She tells me she's going to need to meet with me before I see my family because she has something to tell me before I find out anyway. Odd, but okay. I'm not one for suspense, so I start asking questions like any good curious best friend. She tried to make it into a joke first, then admitted to being the one who had sent the dirty pictures to my brother, and that was why she had to stop working at my mom's house. I was initially just grossed out and thought it was hilarious, because my brother has a history of sleeping with all of my close friends. It didn't bother me at first. I made fun of her and tried to change the subject, but then she told me she still has all of his text messages, and she only did it because she wants to leave her husband. This is nothing new from her. Her husband drinks heavily and is 25 years her elder. We exchanged a few more texts before she had to go to bed, not wanting to talk about it anymore, and I started to process everything she had said. The next day I wasn't feeling cool about being her friend so much anymore. My sister-in-law is very new to the family, and I advocated pretty hard to get Lucy to be the one who was working for my mother. I told her I didn't think it was right that she called me 9 months ago to lie to me about something I never needed to know in the first place. She said it wasn't a lie, and if I needed someone to blame her and not my brother. I asked her if she had apologized to his wife, or told her husband, and that was when her communication with me stopped. We had originally planned to meet a few days ago, and one of the last things she said to me was "see you on Monday." But of course she didn't show up, and she won't answer me. I posted some petty memes about people who lie to their friends. I asked her if we could agree to disagree about it being a lie, but got no answer, and I'm pretty sure she assumes that I am super angry about this. I am really just over the whole thing. Because we are in our 40s, and in the last 15 years she has only bothered to drive to my house once and always insists that I keep her secrets. She always has to go for a secret walk with me, leaving our husbands behind so she can tell me about her last marital indiscretion. She has cheated on her husband with at least 2 of his sons, and I can't even remember everything she's told me about, but there were other men and other weirdly uncomfortable things to keep secret. I just can't keep pretending like I'm okay to be friends with someone who is 46 and still treats her own family like that. Treated my family like that. She claims that she felt very guilty and wasn't thinking about hurting anyone, but she kept the texts like some kind of home-wrecking trophy, and I don't think I can let that go. Story: AITA My friend is having an affair. We plan to tell her husband. I've known 38 years old Anna since we were in high school. We are part of a group of 5. Now we hang out as families for Christmas, birthdays, Easter, etc. It has been like this for over 10 years. My partner Greg, 39 years old, is good friends with 39 years old Anna's husband Darren. Anna recently told me she is having an affair with one of their family friends, who is also Darren's sister's ex-partner. At the time, I remained non-judgmental and supportive. Once the information set in and I realized how disloyal and gross the whole situation is, my sense of justice and moral compass came into play. Darren is a good man. Anna says he is a wonderful father and husband, but she just doesn't feel the connection with him anymore despite faking it the last 6 months to keep her secret under wraps. I knew keeping this from Greg may backfire on me if he found out I also hid the secret, so I told him. He is shattered for his mate, and it is eating at him. I've told Anna that Greg knows. She's pissed at me for the betrayal, expecting me to take it to my grave. She knows they're catching up soon and Greg plans to tell him. Anna has not asked for a separation because they have an overseas trip coming up in October. She has told me financially that she can't leave. Keeping in mind, she regularly gets expensive treatments like Botox and taking roids to have her look her best. We want to tell Darren about her affair in 2 weeks. Will we be the assholes? Story, AITA FAP to PR0N and went to sleep while wife ignored me. I have been having issues with my marriage for the past year ever since I got a new job paying double than hers. Before this, I was terminated/quit in a discrimination case. TLDR for that is, new manager came in, was racist as fuck, deleted me and another guy because we were the wrong race. It was a constructive termination as the lawyers call it because technically I signed a resignation letter in order to get a shitty severance. Anyways, long story short, I became depressed while unemployed. My wife made me buy an expensive gym membership I didn't want. She was now the breadwinner, but she made me pay for this membership for the both of us. I made the best of it, but she didn't like me going without her. It helped our relationship too a little bit, but I got more in shape than she did. I did most of the chores at home during this time, but when I was employed, we did it 50-50ths. I ended up getting a really good job, but shitty commute. I now make 2x her salary. She seemed annoyed by this. But I would shower her with love when I got home, and even though my commute is bad, I would still make dinner for us and clean. But in the last 6 months or so, she stopped doing chores. She also works from home most of the time and has been making a mess at home. At work, I started developing feelings for a coworker. She is actually almost identical to my wife physically. It is sort of funny because I'm certain if I'm ever spotted together with her by people that know me, they would probably not think much of it because she looks so much like my wife. Anyway, nothing happened with coworker except for my feelings for her grew. At home, my wife became more distant, causing more mess too. To the point where I come home and can't relax. The place is a pig pen. I decided to go for therapy. I got help and cut ties with my coworker love interest and focused on my wife. I have been love bombing her and taking on the other half of the chores. But I'm tired now. Went to bed at 10 p.m. exhausted. My wife did not come to bed. She just stayed up watching TV. I waited for her in bed, horny as hell. At about midnight, I rolled over and watched PR0N on my phone. I fapped to a girl that was similar to my wife and coworker. After exploding, I rolled over and went to sleep. Story, AITA for threatening legal action and going no contact with my best friend over an apartment. On July 9th, I am 23 years old, was supposed to move into an apartment with 23 years old my best friend. My parents were willing to co-sign, but her parents were more hesitant when I began doing research and looking for apartments. After 3 months of planning, her parents decided not to sign the lease 2 days before we were supposed to move in. Their main reason for not wanting us to move into the apartment was because some Mexicans on a balcony looked at her mom when they drove by. Her parents are also very well off and could have very easily afforded to pay 10x the rent if they wanted to, so their reasons for backing out were not financial. My parents, on the other hand, are wonderful and I recognize the privilege I have when they paid for all of the application fees $700 in everything that came up for us during the months between applying and our move-in date. After we paid for everything, my parents had to leave their jobs so we could move in with my grandpa whose health was declining. Neither of them have been getting an income since May and were never very rich. They came into money from a relative who passed in April and spent it on me, and after spending their savings on medical bills and needed renovations to my grandpa's house, they've been struggling financially. I live states away from my friends and my whole life. I also had a job I was supposed to start 3 days after we moved, and I was hoping to give part of that paycheck to my parents. The night her parents canceled, I called my BFF. I told her that my options were to find someone else to co-sign for the same place, or I would be moving forward with finding an apartment by myself. I told her the decision wasn't personal and I would love to live with her, but I needed to move for my job and my mental health. I have depression and have been falling in/out of depressive episodes since living at home with nothing to do and no one to talk to except my parents since December. I also have anxiety that has gotten worse with feeling like I need to start living my life while feeling stuck in the situation I was in. Finding an affordable place is easier for one person, especially BC. She wanted a 2-bedroom for reasons I completely agree with. I was freaked out, panicking, and angry with her/her parents for everything. My toxic trait is that I lash out when I'm angry. I am aware of it, so I was trying to handle everything well. I got frustrated when my BFF kept saying I don't know and wouldn't give me an answer about if she wanted to move in together. I snapped and said that if we didn't get the apartment together, my parents would ask her parents to reimburse them the $700 for application fees and money they spent on a storage unit, moving truck, and a caregiver for my grandpa so both of them could help me move. Also said that my parents might take legal action if they refused. This was mostly true, but it wasn't something I wanted to tell her. BC. I didn't want her to feel like I was pressuring her to say yes to something she might not be comfortable with since she would be going against her parents. I said it purely for the sake of scaring or hurting her, and I know that it was wrong. We hung up after I said that and I still hadn't got an answer. The next day, I texted her to see what she wanted to do. I was still angry with her, but we had fights before and we always worked it out, so I knew it would be fine, but we needed to figure out apartment stuff first since it was so time sensitive. While I waited 2 to 3 hours for her to message me, I figured everything out with the complex, but I needed her agreement by noon so the complex could start the paperwork so we could still move in at the same time. I knew she was at work, but I knew the manager and knew it would be fine if I called. When she answered, I apologized for calling her at work, but I needed her final answer. She, again, didn't give me a straight answer and just kept saying, "I'm at work," over and over again. I told her it was time sensitive and I couldn't wait until she was done at 4 p.m. She eventually told me that she no longer wanted to live with me. BC. I broke her trust by saying her parents needed to reimburse mine for all costs when her parents never agreed to that in the first place. So, it was unfair to expect them to pay for everything even though they were the ones backing out of an agreement that my parents funded for both of us out of good faith. In response, I told her that I didn't fully understand her reasoning and was confused by how asking for reimbursement was breaking her trust. She couldn't answer. So, I told her I was too angry to be able to have this conversation at that time. As I said before, I unreasonably lash out when I'm angry and sometimes the best thing for me to do is take a step back. I would have been fine if she said no. BC. She couldn't go against her parents, but when she said that, I just felt like she was being selfish and unfair. I asked her not to contact me and that I would reach out to her when I was ready and I blocked her. I am extremely pissed off at her still and know that if I tried to have a conversation about any of this with her right now and she didn't apologize, I would lose my shit. I feel like all my plans, hopes I had for 6 months were thrown away literally a day before they were going to come true by a person I trusted more than anyone. Some people think I should get over it and hear her side, but I don't think I'm ready to. I love her and I grieve not talking to her, but I'm trying to figure out who I can stay with so I can work, reaching out to people searching for roommates, and I just found out my grandpa is dying and probably won't make it to the end of the week. I know her life isn't the easiest, but it's hard for me not to resent her when I feel like everything is going to shit. She didn't seem to care about my life when we called, so why should I care about her right now when everything feels so unstable? Story: partner's relationship with my parents. My partner and I have been together for 6 years. Something traumatic happened to us 3 years in when our relationship was rocky and we went to stay with my parents. My partner is from a really different background from mine and feels I lied to them about where I was from. This background clashes with their values. After a lot of talking, my partner doesn't want anything to do with my family. I don't agree with the way they view my family, but my partner thinks because I have been brought up with them, I don't see it. They feel extremely strongly about this, to the point they say it has ruined their view of the world to have seen them. I don't want to go into too much detail, as I'm worried they may see this, but there was no abuse from my parents. They are very loving, kind, generous, and accepting queer people who genuinely want the best for everyone they meet. The rockiness in our relationship came from bad communication and my passive-aggressive behavior. They say they are okay with me having a relationship with my parents, but they absolutely do not want to be part of their lives. I respect that, and although it has been difficult and I can't say I have always been understanding, I feel I am okay with that aspect of things now. They had a lot of stress in their life and had a low mood from this. Because of their mental state at the time, I said I agreed with them about how they felt about my parents. I really know this wasn't the right thing to do, but I didn't know what to do. They were suicidal and would not speak to anyone, including their friends, a counselor, a priest, or an anonymous helpline. I felt stuck and I know it wasn't right. Now they are doing much better. I have kept in touch with my parents through text, but they think we broke up and that I am just living on my own, getting on with things. My partner wants a future together, and really, despite the shitty things before, it is everything that I thought I wanted. The problem I have now is that I genuinely don't know how our situation is going to work long term. I think in the heat of it all, I thought I could just keep these parts of my life separate, and I was happy to accept that. I feel sad that I don't see my family as much, and when I said I wanted to see my mom, my partner was so distressed by it that they said they would go to a hotel to stay because they didn't know how they were gonna face me when I came back. They also wanted us to spend Christmas apart and alone because I would likely be phoning them. I should add that it isn't just a problem with my family, as they are fine with other members and actually really like them. It is my parents specifically. Things at the moment between us are far better, and they seem to be in a much better place mentally, and some of the previous stressful situations have improved. However, I feel like I am going to ruin things by bringing this topic up. Also, I have done the wrong thing because I have, in a way, enabled them to think that way about my family, who love me very much. I feel like a terrible daughter, and if anything, the whole situation has made me feel a stronger love for my parents, and I feel even more in disagreement with how my partner feels. I know this sounds crazy, and to be honest, it has been awful, but I genuinely didn't know what to do. I really felt like they were going to do something serious. I know the answer to this is communication with them and not the internet, but I guess I just want some advice or opinions on how you navigate a relationship when your partner doesn't want to be part of your family. I want to know how I can make this work long term if I can, and how I can make both of our wishes and values be protected. I absolutely do not want my partner to go against their values for me. I also feel terrible for my parents, and although they don't ask too many questions at the moment because they think I'm busy with my career in another part of the country, I really don't know how I am going to do this long term. I feel completely stuck and like I am being made to choose between people who I love. My partner has no family and no one else, and to leave them would be really, and literally, leaving them alone in the world, and I just can't do that either. Story, AITA for not agreeing the first time. In my sophomore year, I met a boy. He was cute, smart, and everything that draws me to someone. Our relationship began with casual glances, then hi, and finally, conversations. Once we started hugging, I found myself looking forward to those moments more than anything else. We hugged over 10 times a day, and I loved how I fit into his embrace and how my heart would race as though it was in sync with his. He knew exactly what to say to make me laugh, and with him, nothing was ever boring. I confided in him my little secrets and goals. My teacher even told me she was sure he was in love with me, as I was with him. It was hard to believe, but the feeling of his heart beating against mine couldn't have been a mistake. Then summer came. We parted ways as two kids who could possibly be in love. I had fears he didn't like me, but I wasn't sure. We had the same summer classes, which were more like a camp. I searched for him among everyone, and when I found him, I was really nervous and scared but excited nevertheless. We started talking less, and I got jealous of another girl he was closer friends with. Fewer hugs equaled the growing feeling that perhaps I wasn't meant for love. My friend, classmate, told her other friend about my crush, which ended up being that friend, let's call him Jasper, telling the guy I liked, let's call him Liam, about my feelings. I ran out of class and cried in the bathroom. I avoided him the rest of the day, and when he finally caught up with me, he wanted to talk. We did, and he hugged me, telling me it was okay. He promised we would talk more, but that day never came. We had our casual talks, but Liam said nothing about my feelings, mostly because I never got around to talking about them. During that time, Liam and I rode the bus together, but no words were exchanged, which made me feel lonely. However, he talked all the time with this other friend, whom I had nothing against, but I was really jealous of the fact that he could get close to her while I couldn't. On the last day of summer, I got to know the other girl really well, and she was a lesbian, which meant they weren't together. I hugged Liam, which was great. One thing to clarify, I take hugs very seriously, I don't just hug anyone. So, this was clearly me stating I was interested in moving forward. School started up again, and I still hadn't gotten a reply, 3 months in and nothing. I had given up, taking his silence as a rejection and feeling too hurt to ask him, plus humiliated. We casually started talking again in my Spanish class, but not much. We waved in the hallway now and then. When he finally asked me out, I stupidly said no because I was too afraid. I live in a religious family, which is also strict and doesn't allow dating until school is done. In context, I am not planning on giving up school until I finish my university degree. He said, I wanted to take you up on your offer. I felt hurt because I didn't offer to date him, I just wanted him to ask if I was interested. I wrote him a letter the very next day, explaining things, but then we were over. He stopped staying after lessons to talk to me, and the hellos were somewhat forced. It was like re-listening to those sad songs in the summer again, and that was a love era for me. It was like flying in the sky, and letting myself do so even without knowing what was underneath because I knew for sure I was not going to die. It took him less than 2 months to find someone else, but I was happy. It meant he got the happy ending he deserved. I watched from the sidelines as they cuddled together, and I thought, what a happy couple they make. The girl Liam is dating is the best, and I talked to her. She is a sweet and caring girl. Every time I think of my love life, his image pops up, and I feel guilty. It's when it's too late that you realize you have lost a good one, but at least he found his person. I finished watching A Happy Love Story and thought of him. Every guy I tried to fall in love with, I compared to him, but I think it's time I stop. Liam was a great guy, but not for me. He was meant to fall in love with someone deserving of him, and now it's time I stop chasing after lost dreams. He deserved that from me, at least. Story, AITA for dumping my BFF of 30 years over her secrets. My friend, I will call her Lucy, 47 years old, has been a part of my family for the last 30 years. We were practically sisters since she stayed at my house so often. My mother had a fall accident early last year and needed in-home care. Since Lucy was working for a company that cleans and does errands for the elderly, she offered to help. It was a perfect opportunity to have someone involved that I trust since I live 3 hours away. 4 months went by and things were going well, but Mom had another minor fall. Lucy called me about a week after that to tell me she couldn't work at my mom's anymore, and asked me if I thought my brother would have had anything to do with my mom falling. I of course wanted to know what would make her think that, and she had no reason. After that part of our talk, she also had some juicy gossip which included a bit about my brother being caught by his wife looking at some pictures of and talking to another woman. This was accompanied by the usual "don't tell him I told you about it" as any of her gossip does. My mom and brother live next to each other at this point. I never gave it a second thought after our conversation other than why did I need to know about that? Flash forward and now 9 months have gone by since this with no other mention of it. I'm now planning my trip to visit. Texting with Lucy about when/where we are going to meet and making plans for at least 2 weeks together. We usually meet at my mom's, but this time she can't make it there and doesn't want me to come to her house either. She tells me she's going to need to meet with me before I see my family because she has something to tell me before I find out anyway. Odd, but okay. I'm not one for suspense, so I start asking questions like any good curious best friend. She tried to make it into a joke first, then admitted to being the one who had sent the dirty pictures to my brother, and that was why she had to stop working at my mom's house. I was initially just grossed out and thought it was hilarious, because my brother has a history of sleeping with all of my close friends. It didn't bother me at first. I made fun of her and tried to change the subject, but then she told me she still has all of his text messages, and she only did it because she wants to leave her husband. This is nothing new from her. Her husband drinks heavily and is 25 years her elder. We exchanged a few more texts before she had to go to bed, not wanting to talk about it anymore, and I started to process everything she had said. The next day I wasn't feeling cool about being her friend so much anymore. My sister-in-law is very new to the family, and I advocated pretty hard to get Lucy to be the one who was working for my mother. I told her I didn't think it was right that she called me 9 months ago to lie to me about something I never needed to know in the first place. She said it wasn't a lie, and if I needed someone to blame her and not my brother. I asked her if she had apologized to his wife, or told her husband, and that was when her communication with me stopped. We had originally planned to meet a few days ago, and one of the last things she said to me was, "See you on Monday." But of course she didn't show up, and she won't answer me. I posted some petty memes about people who lie to their friends. I asked her if we could agree to disagree about it being a lie, but got no answer, and I'm pretty sure she assumes that I am super angry about this. I am really just over the whole thing. Because we are in our 40s, and in the last 15 years she has only bothered to drive to my house once and always insists that I keep her secrets. She always has to go for a secret walk with me, leaving our husbands behind so she can tell me about her last marital indiscretion. She has cheated on her husband with at least 2 of his sons, and I can't even remember everything she's told me about, but there were other men and other weirdly uncomfortable things to keep secret. I just can't keep pretending like I'm okay to be friends with someone who is 46, and still treats her own family like that. Treated my family like that. She claims that she felt very guilty and wasn't thinking about hurting anyone, but she kept the texts like some kind of home-wrecking trophy, and I don't think I can let that go. Bye, and see you again in the next videos and stories.